Hi, my name's Scott and I am going to give an INFJ's take on ESFJs. When I was in the city a few weeks ago, I found a statue in a park, which I felt really was a great symbol, if you like, for the ESFJ, because they're such great providers and they love to work to support those around them. I thought this image sort of encapsulated that really, in that when they're providing for others' needs, it's really touching on the very core of who they are. I would call an ESFJ a unconventional leader, as they don't lead so much with dominance and power, but with feeling and influence. Because of the ESFJ's FE and SI functions, ESFJs can come across as almost introverts, because they influence by feeling rather than through power. So provided everything's functioning well for the ESFJ according to their SI function, they can almost hang in the background. They're not so much a sort of top-down leader, more than, in a way, a bottom-up sort of leader, in that they have a tendency to be able to influence their environment with their FE function, really just providing warmth, hospitality, those sorts of things. Because the ESFJ finds it hard to gain or maintain an inner sense of control, they use their FE function to influence the world around them to get a sense of control of their lives. And they use the FE function to influence those around them. So they're naturally warm and interested. They're great in a conversation about anything, and it's effortless for them. I think it's very rare that anyone would feel pushed by an ESFJ in that sort of setting, just in a casual in a casual conversation. They can sell an idea without ever talking about the idea, because they show so much warmth and interest in other people. Other people want to work with them or help them or be around them, and I think that is a real asset of an ESFJ. When an ESFJ is in a positive place, their FE function is incredibly appealing to other people. They read other people's feelings really, really well, and they're able to adjust themselves, whether it be with body language or what they're saying or what they're talking about, to enable the other person to be comfortable. In a relational context, the ESFJ's FE function could be incredibly intoxicating, intense for those that are on the receiving end of their FE function. What is quite amazing about the ESFJ's FE function is just how natural they do it, and how incredibly influencing that function is to other people, and how that the FE function really does knit relationships together, and that's why the ESFJ has often has long-term relationships, whether they're friendships or family relationships. They will always be trying to maintain those relationships, like they're really high importance, those relationships. An ESFJ's FE function can be their best friend and their worst enemy. And I guess for others, an ESFJ's FE function can be their best friend and their worst enemy. When everything's going well, the FE function is incredibly inviting, warm, accepting, and naturally creates and maintains harmonious connections with other people. However, the downside of that is that under high stress or when upset, the FE function can come across as very toxic and very negative, and whether it's the ESFJ's just emotional presence, or if they're using words to communicate their anger or frustration, it can come across as over the top, toxic, and overwhelming. I think part of the reason for that is that it connects with the ESFJ's challenge with their desire for inner control. So whereas someone might go away when they're frustrated or angry to do some inner processing in order to create some calm, the ESFJ uses their FE function externally to try to create a sense of order and control. And in a way, the ESFJ is really just trying to bring themselves back to a place of harmony, and whether it be within their environment or within relationships with others, they're trying to it's almost venting. It's sort of like venting, but it's more they're sort of in an they could be in an overload space, and the expression of the FE function is their way of bringing themselves back to a place of harmony and order. Because of that, some people can come to a conclusion that an ESFJ, when they're acting out negatively in their FE function, they can almost come to the conclusion that they're maladaptive in some way, that there's something underlyingly very wrong. But I don't think that's generally the case at all. I think it's just their FE function expressing itself in order to bring about a certain level of stability and control back into their lives. So for somebody that has to deal with an ESFJ, whether in a relationship or a work context or whatever, it can be helpful to see their FE function in that context. When the ESFJ is sort of acting out their FE function due to, when they're angry or frustrated or whatever, it can be helpful to sort of look at it like they're coming across like a 15 out of 10 in regards to what they're upset about. It's just really intense. So it might come across as a 15 out of 10, but put that same issue in another type's situation, and it might only be a 6 out of 10. But because of the FE dominant function in the ESFJ, it can come across really strongly. So whenever one is faced with an FE dom, it can be important to say to oneself that it's coming across like a 15 out of 10, but it's probably only a 6 out of 10. And it can be really helpful in those sorts of contexts to obviously not react to the ESFJ's FE acting out, and allow them to get that emotion out of them. If anything, that is the answer to the issue, is to allow them to get the emotion out. And I think seeing, sort of reframing, I guess, the FE reaction and making it a 6 out of 10, it can help to sort of regulate oneself and regulate the situation, that eventually the ESFJ will get out what is in them, and life will probably return back to normal pretty quickly. So while it's important to not dismiss their FE dominant reactions, it's important to not give it too much weight either. And I think doing that will, help the ESFJ to get back to a place of calm a lot quicker. So in some respects, the ESFJ can get a bit of a bad rap. And what I mean by that is that when the ESFJ is functioning really well, they can go unnoticed in some ways, because they're naturally providing and meeting others' needs, and again, because it comes across so naturally, they can be taken for granted for how effective their influence is on other people. So for someone to notice that and share that with the ESFJ, it's going to impact them greatly. So yeah, just going back on getting a bad rap, they can go unnoticed, but then when they're not functioning well, when they're under stress and frustration, their FE dominant function can be really misunderstood, and they can be judged quite harshly for their expression of their FE function. So yeah, I think there's a lot of room there to be judged and misunderstood. So that's the end of part 1 of my series on ESFJs. I hope you find them helpful. Appreciate it if you like the videos, that you would click the like button and comment what your thoughts are or insights are on ESFJs, and click here for part 2.